Welcome, Night Anime Recap. In a world full of different creatures such as birds, beasts, botanical beings, fish, insects, fairies, spirits, and humans, the being that reigns above them all is the mighty dragon. With wings that can take hold of the wind, claws that can slice through even the toughest materials, and fire breath that could raise the world to ashes, it's no doubt that a dragon is a legendary beast worthy of its throne. It's incredibly rare to encounter a dragon that is none of those things. But in this story, the star is one. Poor Letty has been having an awful day. It all started when he had to protect the egg of their mighty dragon family. Pretty easy, right? Unfortunately, he fell asleep, and a hunter stole the egg right under his nose. As much as he wanted to retrieve it, Letty is nothing but a defenseless, cowardly dragon who couldn't even go near the hunter. And so, he came home empty-clawed and faced the wrath of his father, who called him a disgrace to all dragonkind. Out. His father tells him that if he wants to be his son, he must be able to live independently. And that's why here he is now, alone and abandoned with no place to call home. As he checks his ID card, he wonders how he can survive being out in the wild. Yes, he's a dragon, but with those stats, and not to mention an awfully taken photo, what can he do? Letty starts questioning why he was even born as a dragon and starts crying when he realizes he can only be bold and brave in his dreams. He believes he's destined to be turned into a kinda cool looking gear. Well, that's not so bad though. With tears in his eyes, he looks up at the sky and wishes he had a nice nest he could hide in. Wait, that's exactly what he needs. While reading the story of the three little trolls, Letty thinks about how he needs to find his own safe nest. The three little trolls were the weakest of the mobs, but they banded together and built an impenetrable fortress where no one could slaughter them in their sleep. If Letty can get one of his own, then he will survive living alone. And this is the start of his quest to go house hunting. Letty's first stop is at the dwarven city, Zoloto Mine. Knowing that dwarves are great at building houses, he thought he could ask them for help. But as soon as he shows up, they capture him thinking he will steal their gold. So now he's crying in a cage as the dwarves celebrate their plan to do vivisection on him. Letty throws a tantrum, calling out for his mom and dad as he stomps his feet. The head of the dwarves tries to talk to him, saying they will build him a house in exchange for a couple of things. Dragon mats sell for hefty prices, so they'll need his claws. Sure, Letty can give them some. Next, they need his horns too. Okay, Letty can give them the tips. Then they'll also need his tail and wings. What? The dwarf finishes enumerating, saying they'll also need some of his organs, like his heart. And that's when they'll build a nice resting place for Letty. Indeed, a place where he can rest, in peace. Well, Letty might end up as a nice gear after all, huh? As the dragon thinks of what he can do to escape, the dwarf opens the lock of the cage, warning him not to try to run from them. But as soon as the gate is open, Letty yells out, "Ah, someone's stealing your gold." That's the oldest trick in the book. There's no way the dwarves would fall for it. Letty thinks he's surely done for, but the dwarves surprisingly get startled, so he makes a run for it. As he gets chased into the forest, he encounters hunters along the way. Letty gets trapped with nowhere to run, but he, fortunately, gets out alive when the dwarves pick up a fight with the monster hunters. While he cries in the forest, thinking of a way to survive, two beautiful harpies, or harpia, fly down to him. They comfort him, asking what happened. Letty tells them about how he was driven out of their home. The kind harpies offer him to stay with them since their nest is empty after their younglings left. But as happy as Letty is about the offer, he is immediately faced with another problem. The harpies' nests are on top of a gigantic tree, which means he needs to fly. No problem, he's a red dragon. He can just beat his wings and fly up with the harpies, right? Wrong. Letty doesn't have the fly action unlocked, so he can't really fly yet. The very few actions he can do are tail tremble, jump, and run the heck away. The harpies decide to help him, bringing him to the top of a cliff. They cheer him on, calling him their little lizard and the little dragon that could. All he needs to do is fly straight to the nests. He can definitely do it. Letty opens his wings and soars under the sunlight, looking straight at his destination. But all the giggling and giddiness is gone when he drops to the ground after a few seconds. The harpies laugh amongst themselves. Well, lizards can't fly after all. Suddenly, the harpies think of another way for him. They tell Letty to go into the valley beyond, where he'll find a giant oak tree inhabited by goblins. They assure him that he will be helped there and send their regards as the dragon sets off. That same night, Letty finds himself hanging upside down, with one foot chained to a tree. The goblins appear and stare at the spectacle before them. Well, there's something they don't see every day. And so, one of them declares dragon steaks back on the menu. Poor Letty can't get a break. He cries out he doesn't want to be on the menu, and the goblins sit on each other's shoulders to reach his face, asking him why he's on their turf. He explains that the harpies told him he'll be safe here and that they send their regards. As soon as the goblins hear about this, they let Letty down safely. They can't disappoint the beautiful flying babes. When he's finally lying on the ground, a goblin asks him what he needs. So he tells his long story again of being abandoned and that he needs a place to stay. But as much as the goblins want to help him, the world seems kinda twisted for a big-ass dragon to ask trash mob goblins for help. Oh, trust me, Letty knows. The goblins sadly reject him, telling him he should find a place somewhere else. The leader also reminds him to have a little more confidence. He's a dragon, for Gob's sake. Continuing with his journey, Letty finds himself in a lake where he meets a Sawajan. He politely asks for housing help again, and the Sawajan kindly tells him he can live with them if he's okay with the location. It's a bit of a swim, but he's welcome to stay. Elated, Letty thanks him and dives into the water. A few moments later, the dragon is back on the surface, catching his breath. He apologizes to the Sawajan, saying he forgot he has never gone swimming before. Maybe try to remember that before diving in headfirst, Letty. Once again, he has failed to find a place to stay. The Sawajan suggests that he head to the East Forest, where he'll find a competent architect called Diarrhea. This lovely elf, who makes his living in construction and real estate, is also the one who built the Sawajan's house. Filled with excitement, Letty grabs the Sawajan's flipper and thanks him as he flees to the east. One short journey and he will finally find the home of his dreams. Or at least that's what he thought. Letty spends the entire day asking gnomes, and even a hunter for directions. The rain pours, the sun shines, and finally, he sees a magical-looking tree. This must be the place he's looking for. But just as he feels relief, he hears hunters coming. For self-proclaimed heroes appear before him, dramatically announcing that they will purge the land of his unclean soul. Letty starts looking around and asks one of the heroes, Eric, where the hidden cameras are. Yeah, that was way too dramatic to be real. Eric gets mad, saying this isn't a reality TV show. He points his sword at Letty, but the dragon is still confused. There's no one else there, Letty. They're definitely talking about striking you down. But why? Eric and his party aren't hunters, so why do they want to kill him? Well, it's because they're heroes. Letty can't believe it. They named themselves that? It's pretty cringy to call yourself a hero when others should be saying that, right? Annoyed, Eric tells him that it's a job title. The dragon further irritates the heroes when he answers back, making them attack him. As Eric strikes his sword, Letty dodges successfully, and the hero is fuming. Letty explains he doesn't want to fight and just wants to find a home where he can live in peace. Eric tells him to shut up. They don't care about the circumstance, they only follow their will. So much for being heroes, huh? The man says slaying a dragon would give them the glory to stand above all heroes. As their party prepares to attack him again, Letty yells, help. Somewhere in the middle of the forest, an elf hears his plea. While the archer hero shoots his arrows at Letty, the elf walks toward them, bringing out a magical book from thin air. As soon as the heroes see the elf, they all look terrified. And before they could even say he's the demon of, they're burned to flames. This elf doesn't like bullies, that's for sure. He calls them horrible heroes who don't care whom they hurt as the book disappears in his hand. Letty watches everything unfold from behind a tree. When the elf asks if he's all right, his soul leaves his body, literally. A dragon who fainted. Well, there's a sight you don't see every day. The elf walks up to him and asks where he's from. But Letty, who's not quite back in his body yet, answers, home. What? I just wanna go home. And he loses consciousness again. When Letty wakes up, he sees the elf and asks who he is. But then, he suddenly remembers the scene earlier. This is the elf who killed the heroes. Scared, he hides behind the tree again. The calm elf asks once more if he's okay, and Letty apologizes, introducing himself and thanking the elf for saving him. He explains that he is in the area looking for a capable elf architect who can help him find a home. The elf tells him what a coincidence, nonchalantly introducing himself as Diarrhea the architect. Letty took some time to load. When he finally realizes it, he yells, please find me a home. Diarrhea instantly agrees, and Letty thanks the heavens. However, Diarrhea explains that there are a plethora of options to consider. Does Letty want to build his own home? Does he want to purchase an existing house? Or does he want to rent from a property owner? Diarrhea continues, telling Letty that he is both a registered architect and a licensed real estate agent while handing over his business card. As Letty reads the card, he notices that it also says Diarrhea is a demon lord. The elf tells him yes, it's one of his occupations too. Letty is delighted. Diaria must be the demon lord of real estate. Oh, this poor, naive, sheltered dragon. But if that's what you want to believe, Letty, then sure. Diaria doesn't waste any time and immediately asks what kind of home Letty is interested in. The dragon shyly tells him he wants a cozy little cottage, but Diaria doesn't beat around the bush and tells Letty that he can't fit in something like that. He sketches the tiny house and explains that as much as he wants to fulfill the dragon's wishes, a simple design like that would be lax on security. If another party of heroes arrives at his house, then he would be as good as dead. Letty is surprised. You mean there are more of them out there? Yes, Diaria explains. There are indeed plenty more of those epitome of cringe lurking around. Letty says he feels bad for humans. I wouldn't argue with that, my friend. Diaria tells him hunters specialize in hunting down non-humans, but heroes are bloodthirsty killing machines. They rob, murder, pillage, and even assist in political coups. The list goes on. There's not even enough time in the day to enumerate their crime. Yikes. Anyway, back to business. Letty and Diaria start their tour of houses with the Temple of Fall. It's a massive structure, too huge even for a dragon like Letty. Diaria explains that the 27-year-old structure resembles ancient temples. It is built for powerful inhabitants and possesses many anti-hero countermeasures. They enter the place, and Letty is amazed. There's a lot of space for just one person, or dragon. Just as they start walking further inside, Diaria warns him of his steps as he might accidentally activate a trap. Yeah, too late for that. Letty falls through the floor, into the B1F level. Diaria explains that there's nothing wrong with the house. It is just a subterranean dungeon equipped with anti-hero traps. The house has 4 floors, and the trap on the first floor is to protect the first floor living quarters. The rest of the structure is built like an antlion pit that would drop intruders into the basement levels where certain things can happen to them. Most hunters who enter never come back out. As Diaria continues touring Letty, the dragon encounters mishap after mishap. At one point, he thinks that Diaria might be fooling him when he instructs how to open a door, so he does the opposite. Turns out, the elf wasn't kidding, and Letty falls into another trap instead. When they finally reach the B3F level, Letty asks if they could take a break. The elf agrees, pointing to the healing spring that happens to be at that basement level too. The excited dragon jumps in, relaxing on the water. He asks Diaria if heroes couldn't use that to heal themselves. The elf does it again with the late warning as he explains that the spring has sensors that will detect when someone is in the water and flush them away. Perfect. There goes our poor Letty down the drain. Thankfully, Diaria teleports him back to the ground before he drowns. How was your experience? The demon lord asks Letty. Well, now he knows how a dead goldfish feels. He asks what could have happened if Diaria didn't teleport him back. Diaria tells him there are some things better left unknown. Oh, and that concludes Diaria's demonstration of the structure's anti-hero traps. Now they need to head back to the first floor through an obstacle course. Letty thinks, is this a training arc or what? Well, the dragon doesn't want to go back up through the same process he went down, so he'll try his best to climb the wall instead. Before he starts, Diaria asks if flying up would be quite uncouth. Yeah, that would be it. It's not like Letty can't fly. He just thinks flying would be uncouth. True. As the dragon climbs up, he chants to himself, don't look down, I'm not looking down, while Diaria sits calmly on his tail. Suddenly, some heroes appear below them, wondering how to escape the structure. They get excited when they see Letty climbing and prepare to shoot him with an arrow. But before they could, Diaria faces them and tells them not to get in Letty's way. The 3 heroes arrogantly shoot Diaria instead, and the elf blocks it with his magical book. He warns them again not to get in Letty's way as he flicks his finger and vanishes them all at once. Letty has no clue of what is happening behind him as he continues to climb with his eyes closed. He finally reaches the top and is welcomed by Diaria. The elf praises him for his hard work, and Letty is touched when Diaria pats his nose. But the moment quickly slips away when Diaria gets back to business, asking if Letty wants to make an offer for the property. The dragon quickly says, no, thank you. He can't really live in a house full of pitfalls and traps. After the training-like house tour, Letty's muscles are sore for days. He just wants to find a house perfect for him. And so, Diaria and Letty continue the dragon's house hunting quest with higher hope.